If you'd like to participate in the discussion or leave us feedback, you can contact us at levelupyourgamingpodcast@gmail.com or find us on Facebook at facebook.com/levelupyourgaming. If you like the content and want to hear more of the show, subscribing will ensure you don't miss an episode. New episodes come out almost every Wednesday. Also, please review, tell a friend about the podcast, or share with your gaming group. Now sit back and enjoy the episode.
Welcome to Level Up Your Gaming Podcast, where we discuss the various ways to make your tabletop role-playing experience better, either for your players or for you as the game master. My name is Josh, and I'll be doing this one solo today. Aaron is taking some time off for the foreseeable future because he has a new baby, and I will be doing my best to bring you interesting content in the meantime. I've reached out to some people about co-hosting an episode here or there, and I've got a few ideas on topics that we're going to be covering. Today, I would like to talk to you about politics. I know this is a hot-button issue that some people might want to shy away from. Political views can be divisive between people that think differently. Families can get into heated arguments, and friends groups can become splintered. With the issues that are facing people, the choice of political parties or viewpoints can define the things about our world that we find important. This is a topic that can resonate deep into the very fabric of a person's worldviews and morals. It is important that any such topic is treated with the gravitas and humility that it deserves. That being said, all of your political views are butts, and you are stinky butts for having them. This is a podcast about telling stories and trying not to roll so many dice when doing it. I want to talk about the different types of political systems that you can have in a tabletop game, and more specifically, I want to talk about making a political story and getting your players invested in it. So, what makes a game political? Any political game will boil down to choices that your players can make to support one side of an argument or the other. If one side wants X, the other side wants Y. Now this comes into play when X and Y are different. If X and Y are diametrically opposed, meaning they are completely different, this can be a difficult choice. Your party may have to choose the side that they morally agree with, or the one that benefits the people it affects in a way that they're willing to accept. They will have to choose to support one group of people while alienating another. This can make enemies of the very people you hope to court to your cause. If your players have opposing viewpoints on which side to choose, all the better. If X and Y are more analogous or similar, this can be an interesting choice. If the two choices are different ways to approach the same issue, but there are differences that the people supporting them feel strongly about, you can try and broker a compromise, or you can pick one side over the other. Picking a side is similar to the choice when the options are not similar. You can make an enemy, or just a group of people that don't like your choice. Or you can try and win them over after the choice by demonstrating that it was the right one. Attempting to broker a compromise can be a tricky endeavor. Your party might want to get leaders from both sides to sit down and discuss the differences. Don't do that. That's going to lead to a session where you as the GM will be arguing with yourself. So you should make your players do it. Have each side select a representative from the party to argue the point. If your players saw merits in each side, it should be pretty easy to select the people that leaned one way or the other. And if you want to run the risk of everyone being unhappy, but not enemies, a compromise solution could be floated and argued as well. If you do this right, your players will be engaged and active in, dare I say it, role-playing. Now, there are some drawbacks to doing a political game. First of all, make sure that you pick the right tabletop system to run the story. If you try and shoehorn only politics into a fighting game and then spend all of your time making players roll charisma checks, it might feel like their characters are missing out on a huge part of their skill set. That doesn't mean that a political story can't have combat. Most of my stories try and find a balance between the two. This lets the combat-focused players have their beatdown sessions, and still lets the role players direct the next place where the beatdown sessions will take place. Remember to run that session 0, and to lay out that the story you're planning on telling is going to have a focus on social skills. You don't want all of your players using charisma as a dump stat. Okay, let's talk about types of governments. Now, if you head over to Wikipedia and look up the different types of governments, you're going to see a laundry list of government types. If we wanted to, we could make a whole series on the different forms of governments that could be used to create a world. but I'd rather just boil it down to the size of power and the source. I think that's going to be the simplest way to think about things. The 4 sizes that I would like to talk about is autocracy, oligarchy, democracy, and anarchism. Now, autocracy is when you have a ruling by a single person, like a king or a pope or a CEO, so that one person makes all the rules. An oligarchy is a small group of people that make rules, like a company's board. Democracy is when you've got rule by the people, like representative government. People are selected to represent the people and the people's will. And anarchism is the removal of hierarchy. It's not just free for all, everybody shoots each other and burns the place down. It's that everybody's sort of on a level plane, like a farm co-op or a rebellion sometimes. With any of the power sizes that are not an autocracy, they usually have people who are put at the top or people who are representatives, even if it is just to break ties and to make sure that people are on task. So in an oligarchy or in a democracy, you would have somebody at the top of the list to sort of make sure that rules are taken care of. In anarchism, you may not have one person elevated over somebody else, but 2 people who are having an argument may need to agree on a third person to broker said argument. So let's start with autocracy. It's the easiest one to think about, and when I think of fantasy stories, the first thing that pops in my head is a king ruling over the land and fighting wars with other kings. Same can obviously be said for religious or corporate organizations. You could have churches battling it out or CEOs sending one company after the other. If there's a single figure at the top that makes all the rules and chooses who has power within the government, you got yourself an autocracy. Now, how do you run a political game if all the choices come from a single source? Well, the thing that pops in my mind, the way that I would run this, is you have somebody else with a claim to the power or that position. And that means you are either going to be running a coup d'etat or returning the rightful ruler after a coup has already taken place. So let's put this in a game. What does this look like? Just let's make a quick story, nothing too complicated. We're going to look at some highlights. Let's start with your players are introduced to the current ruler and their history. Then you go and see how the citizens are treated under that ruler. Then you introduce the person that believes that they should be the ruler. You go and meet people who support that second person, gather resources, and plan to usurp the current ruler. Then you coup all night long. And finally, behold the spoils of your victory. It's a simple outline, and it can be super epic. The current ruler may be beloved by a segment of the population, while they're hated by others. The usurper may be locked away and require requests to get them. The party may have to hide away the usurper while gathering the support they will need to pull off the coup and to get the new ruler declared legitimate. The coup itself is definitely going to be a messy endeavor, no matter how it falls. Finally, the spoils might not be great. The original ruler may have been doing something to keep the kingdom from doom. All right, that sounds like a great outline for an epic story. But where's the politics? Oh, it's right there in the middle. When the party is attempting to garner support for the usurper, it doesn't matter if the rules come from the top, they still have to apply to people. So to get the support that's necessary for the kingdom or the religion or the company or whatever it is, you're going to need to make promises to people. And this makes it a political game that's interesting and to get your players involved. You should absolutely have different important figures, either within the city or the company or the religion or whatever it is. People with sway will want different things. And you're going to have your players pick and choose which sides they want to support and what they're going to do to make these people happy. So, the next one we're going to talk about is oligarchy. Now, this is my favorite way to run a political story because you can have a small group of people that all hate each other and exist in some sort of unending power struggle against each other, and your players can decide who wins and who loses. It really gives them a lot of options on how to play the story, making it more dynamic. In the last game, it's very clearly this is the road you're on, and your success or failure is just that. In an oligarchy, you get to choose sides, and you may support one person over another, changing the outcome of the story. Now, the members of the ruling class will have factions, viewpoints that they will fight for, and others that they agree upon. To get anything done in an oligarchy story, you need to be able to make compromises in order to get enough support to get what you need done. So you could set your story in a city that's ruled by like a small council, like a congress of powerful people. Each of them has their own agenda, and there's options on how you can position your players. You could have the players be doing their own thing and need to get the support of the rulers in order to make a thing happen. They could be hired by the council to investigate the doings and report back. Or you could have them working for one of those people in power and have to work to gather the support for a thing that they need. If they're trying to gather the support from the council, they're going to need to understand what each member desires and to make the approach accordingly. If they're hired to investigate, they might find information that some members of the council will not like, and reporting it may create enemies. If they're working for a member of the council, they're going to need to keep that patron's views in mind while getting the support from other members. So I might structure a story to use all three of those, right? You'd have the party needs to gather support to ward off a new menace, and the council needs to vote on it. And then they speak to each council member, try and persuade them to get it called up for a vote, and then the vote doesn't go their way, right? It gets most of the way there, but really the council says we need more information, hires the party to go and do some investigating, gather information, bring us back what we need. The quest for the data leads to secrets being revealed about council members. I wouldn't say like, oh, Bob is evil and Susan is actually a herald of good. No, you make it so that they're non-evil choices that these council members may have done in the past. Things that they have done, choices that they have made that unknown to them may have caused the exact trouble that they're doing. Or maybe these are things that they did know were going to happen, but felt it was more important for a short-term gain than a long-term problem, and now the long-term problem has come about. Now you've got blackmail material, or you've got leverage against those members of council. Okay? The players then relay the information back to the council to get what they need done, and then they're hired in by, one of the lead members of the council. And now you've got political people in your party who have coerced their way into positions of power and get to have arguments about the leading of this city. It may not be as epic as the last one, but it's a fun, tight political game that can have real potential for players that like deception and intrigue. The next one I want to talk about is democracy. Now, democracy might be the most popular form of government because the people have a say in what happens, but it also means that everyone can be involved. This is a problem for us as storytellers, as we may want to focus on individuals. People can be interesting. They can have rich histories. They can have foibles. But if you're looking at a crowd, all you got is that it wants. So don't focus on thousands of NPCs that might be involved in electing a person. Focus on the people that are running for office. Now, this means that you can have a game that's similar to the oligarch story or even the autocrat story, with the added bonus that the person you are trying to court to get what you're wanting is not currently in power, and they have no divine claim to said power. They're going to need to rile up the people to support them. You could have your players need to reach out to special interest groups and to make promises or complete actions for these groups. There could be events that the players have to promote and organize before they are then tasked with running them and making them secure. Personally, I think democracy is a pretty hard story to tell, as there's too many moving parts and it can go a lot of different ways. This is the reason why a lot of these stories have kings or small councils that are in charge. However, with a lot of planning and prep work, you can make this a very interesting story that your players can get super involved with. You could introduce your players to an issue that they need the government to fix. There could be an upcoming election and 2 or even more people that are running from the area that the players would need help in, and have the players reach out to help the various people. Get at least one of these people to offer support, but they're an underdog in the race. Have the person who's, a shoo-in largely ignore them. Now, you can have multiple people running that are going to support the player, but you should have them each have different values or specific subjects that they want to take care of that contradict with the player's own values, forcing your players to make political choices on who to support to get what they need. Now, the party then has to engineer whoever they've chosen to rise in political standing within the community so they can get what they need. Finally, we've got anarchy. What sort of politics can you have if the setting of the story is ruled by anarchy? The answer is tons. Remember that I said that political games boil down to making choices as to who to support when each side wants different things. Now, all the same principles apply when there isn't a formal governmental hierarchy making and enforcing the rules. In fact, I think it's much more important that the players are able to navigate the political landscape carefully when they don't have laws or guards or rulers backing up what they're doing. Now, I haven't made any stories that utilize anarchy as the main form of rule, but I have used anarchy to denote the power structures and groups that my players may interact with. Groups tend to be small in nature to avoid complicating things, because everybody has a voice, which means that that's a ton of NPCs. Now, you could have a rebellion against a king that's made up by people that have no formal power structure, as long as they're united by that one goal. And within that group, there may be factions that have different ideas on how to accomplish that goal. It can be up to your players, once again, to make a choice on whose plan they want to support, and to gather support from the other members for that rebellion to succeed. You could have a farming community that needs to band together to fight off bandits that are now picking off the farmers one by one. Since the farmers want to rule themselves, they may oppose any structured form of rule, but since each of them are weak to defend against the raids, they need to make a choice: support each other and fight, or maintain autonomy and get picked off one by one. It's in these power structures that each person is their own king, and your players would need to navigate that accordingly. There could be alliances already in place that would be disturbed if your players were to make an enemy of one of the individuals by making the wrong choice or saying the wrong thing. And they could have friends elsewhere that cause you trouble because you've done that. Remember, load up a lot of character names before running this, since everyone could be important, and your players may reach out to a lot of different people. So I talked a lot about giving your players choices, giving them something to say, something to pick. And I said that politics is nothing more than making a choice between supporting two different ideas. Now, if the ideas are directly opposed, it makes your player's choice more black and white. If the ideas are similar, but not the same, it can make your player's choices shades of gray. The NPCs that you as a GM have made should align to these ideas and really believe in them. This means that the choices your players will make have an ongoing effect on those NPCs and the game world. So what kind of choices can you give your players? Well, I think this is really a KYP situation. I would discourage any game master from introducing politics that are real world direct. Avoid politically hot issues. Do not turn on the news, point at a politician and dump them into the game, or anything that they've said. You look at this point, the patron saint of satire, Terry Pratchett, and follow his directions if you want to do this. But still KYP. Barring that, you should pick issues that are either morally black and white or morally gray, depending on what you want out of your players. So what is a black and white issue? It might be something that, like providing money and resources for war widows and orphans. You know, who wouldn't want to support the families of those that fought so hard for this kingdom? Maybe another wants to fix the aqueducts so they're not leaking and full of mold. The people in District 4 are getting sick at an alarming rate, and those are the same people that clean the upper-class manors and take care of the children. Now this means, raising taxes or levying something else, so it can still have a, you got to do X to get Y. You have to do something to get something. But it does give you a very clear, this is a good thing to do, and your players may want to do that. What might be a shade of gray issue might be what to do with captured war criminals. You could have two sides. One side wants to execute them publicly to show the people that their government still wants to support them, while the other side wants them locked away where they can never be seen again, so they can't be made into martyrs. Another gray issue might be trade negotiations with another kingdom or town that still has slavery. And while the goods may not be made by slaves, the money is still going to be going to slave owners. Well, the goods might be necessary. They may be medicine for your town. Do you take life-saving materials from terrible people just because they have different morals than you? The key to giving your players a good political choice is finding that moral standing. The choices are not pancakes or waffles. Both are good for different reasons. They're choices that require the players to think about what their characters would approve of. A good character may not want to support a slave owner, but knows the good that will come from the supplies that they are providing. An evil character may not want to care for the plights of the poor, but they may see value in getting their support in order to use those people later. As a final note, I personally like a more dynamic story. When I create my campaigns, I make a rough outline of where I want things to go, and then only flesh out the parts that I'm currently showing my players, in the short term. This means that I have more work to do to prep a session, but it also lets me make a world that seems more alive, because the choices my players make have an impact on the story that they're in. And if you want to tell a story with politics, you really should prepare yourself for letting your players make choices that dramatically alter the landscape that you're going to be in. I think if you ever want to run a political game, you have to look at these things, you have to know the people that are going to be involved, and you have to come up with NPCs that are interesting, dynamic, and divisive. They need to have specific viewpoints that make your players really think, yes, I want to support them, or no, I don't. You can't have Susie do good and Larry evil. You should make gray people that have both good and bad, and making a choice to support one of them means you're also supporting something that the players may not like. It makes it interesting, it makes it fun, and it makes it a game that your players are going to follow through with. Normally, Aaron would ask me if I have anything else to add to this, but, I guess I could ask myself. Josh, do you have anything more to add to this? No, I don't, Josh. I think we've covered everything. But I'm going to say a bunch of stuff at the end anyway, just because that's what I do. Thanks. I think we're all set here. If you have anything you'd like to ask us regarding this topic or another that might be near and dear to your heart, please feel free to drop us a line at levelupyourgamingpodcast@gmail.com or head on over to facebook.com/levelupyourgaming. The podcast is also available on YouTube, so check that out, like and subscribe. As always, if you liked what we talked about today or think someone you know would benefit from our worldly advice, please share this with them. We are here to help and would love to hear from you. This is not the end. but I've got nothing more to say. Bye.